Joe, first off, just talk a little bit about what your testimony was in this hearing. And second, what purpose? I mean, what purpose do the Republicans really think they're accomplishing with this sort of, C-SPAN marathon of a hearing that nobody else is going to pay attention to?
Well, first, let me say, Jason, you're making me relive one of the worst days of my life. It's so hard to sit there and not respond to the nonsense that's going on. The three Republican witnesses, but maybe especially Mr. Costello, it was painful. And to me, it was so obvious that on this day, they picked to assassinate the character of Michael Cohen. It was outrageous, everything he said. My testimony related to, they have called this hearing a lawfare weaponization of government. And honestly, other than Lawfare blog, I had to look up what lawfare meant. And it meant using the institutions of government to take down an opponent. And to me, this hearing was actually lawfare. They were doing it to hurt the ongoing trial, to interfere in this particular trial. My testimony was more about the fact that it used to be that facts mattered and that the distinctions between the indictment decisions of the special counsel for Mr. Trump and for President Biden are based on not a different standard, but on different facts, and that if anyone would pay attention to the facts, it was justified to make the decision that you would not indict President Trump, and it left you no decision except to indict Mr. Trump, because Mr. Trump not only concealed, he hid, he obstructed. Those are the reasons that the aggravating factors lead to a indictment. And so it was, my point was, no one is above the law, including a former president, and that the differences in decisions have nothing to do with the Department of Justice cheating or showing a bias. It has to do with the facts that apply to the standard. So the standard's the same. There's no weaponization. And I thought that the testimony attacking Michael Cohen was completely unfair.
Jim Jordan had another one of his clown hearings this Wednesday. Can anybody, please, in the comment section, you can have the span of the last 5 years. Name me one thing that Jim Jordan has achieved for his constituents in Ohio. Because as far as I can see, he seems to have one role in life, that is to do everything and anything within his powers to make sure that the cover-up of all the crap and garbage that former guy has done and been involved in is pushed to one side, and that Trump is duly re-elected. If Jim Jordan has any other evidence that he's done or achieved anything separate to what I've just said, please share it with me now.
So let's break this down. They have the transcript of the interview. They have the information. They have it black and white on paper. The substance of what they want, they already have. And they are now trying to hold the Attorney General in contempt simply because the Attorney General won't turn over the audio, knowing that they will just use that for their own political partisan campaign purposes, because there is no legitimate reason that they can enumerate why they need the audio for their congressional purposes in addition to the transcript. But it gets better. The person trying to bring contempt against Merrick Garland for violating a subpoena, for providing the substance but not necessarily all of the mechanism, is Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan entirely defied a subpoena from the January 6th committee. He didn't just give transcripts and not audio. He gave nothing. And the hypocrisy that these Republicans continue to push forward with, when you have other members of my committee, the Oversight Committee, who also defied a congressional subpoena, rejected all cooperation with the January 6th committee, and now trying to turn around and saying, no, you must comply with every single thing we ask or you'll be held in contempt. That is never how it worked. This will fail if this ever went to court, but they're just desperately clawing for something to hold on to because the impeachment investigation was such a flop and such a bust. They're trying to change the topic now, but they can't help but shoot themselves in the foot.
Like Natalie Winters, a Trump loyalist and an executive producer for Steve Bannon's show, have been mocking Chairman Jordan's leadership of the committee openly. As you can see up there, when the House Judiciary tweeted, "Imagine actually believing Michael Cohen," she retweeted and said, "Imagine actually believing at Judiciary GOP will do anything about it." Just as one example, on Monday, she put that tweet up, and then Fox's Maria Bartiromo and Steve Bannon himself have gotten into the act. And here they are.
Why aren't you being louder about this? Why aren't I hearing anything from this committee? I had to just ask you about it, okay? Just let me be clear. Viewers are sick and tired of hearings. They're sick and tired of letters. They're sick and tired of hearing complaints. They want action. President Trump is in a trial all day long, every day in New York City. Where is this committee of weaponization, and what are you doing about it? I just spoke with Kevin Hassett, the former chairman of the White House Economics Council, and he said, make no mistake, if we see President Trump go to jail because he violated this gag order, markets will react. Okay, Congressman, we're losing the country. So with all due respect, I'm not blaming you specifically, but it's not enough to set up a committee that's called the weaponization of federal government. That's not doing it for anybody. We want to hear more from you. We want to hear action. We want to know what the heck is going on in this New York trial where nobody can seem to come up with a crime.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm specifically doing.
Okay. No, I don't need to hear a backbencher. I'm sure you're a good guy, and I'm sure you're trying to do a lot, but it's not, as Maria Bartiromo says, and man, she lit him up.
We all heard her. It's not enough to set up a committee just called the weaponization of the federal government. That's not doing it. We want action. And that's why we're here today. We're here at the beck and call of Trump fanatics. Point of order, will the witnesses all be given 7-8 minutes? What is that?
Yeah.
It's usually 5, so we didn't know that in advance to be able to.
We're going to give them a little extra time. I gave you 14.
But she didn't have time to prepare 8 minutes of testimony, opening statement.
She's a smart lawyer. She can probably ad lib for a few minutes if she'd like, but that's totally up to her.
We'd like it to be something more than ad lib, as we just heard.
We listened to you talk for 14 minutes and 14
That's called an opening statement. I'm allowed to talk as long as I want.
And I was fine. I let you go 14 minutes and 14 seconds.
You have to let me go for 14 minutes.
That's
exactly
what
I wanted
exactly.
to. But
exactly right. Mr. Trusty, you are recognized for your opening statement.
The courtesy of advance notice would have been helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jim Trusty. I've been in.
My Republican colleagues on the other side of the aisle are accusing the Democrats of doing all of their misconduct that they engage in over and over and over in an effort to normalize it, in an effort to deflect attention from their own wrongdoing. It is right in authoritarian 101 playbook. But let's talk about this two-tiered system of justice. Let's talk about lawfare. Mr. Costello, your entire opening statement, as I heard it, was simply to discredit Michael Cohen. Sir, I think you're in the wrong place. Michael Cohen is currently on the witness stand at a trial in Manhattan. And if you have information about Michael Cohen's testimony, you should talk to Donald Trump and his lawyers to see if they want to call you as a witness to impeach Michael Cohen. But you know that coming down here, outside of that courtroom, while that witness is on the stand to try to impeach his credibility and his testimony, is jury tampering. You know it is unethical. You know that you are trying to discredit a current witness at a current trial who is testifying right now outside of that courtroom. You know better, and it is shameful.
That's not all that's been said. If we were to go through the various statements, on day one, I will be a dictator. Is that an appropriate thing for an American president to be, or even to say he would be? Anybody want to answer that question?
It is inappropriate.
Mr. Hamilton. Appropriate or inappropriate for a wannabe
You didn't want to hear me a
president?
second ago, so why are you asking me now? I'll answer it's humorous. I don't think the guy actually thinks he's about to be a dictator.
Exactly.
So you think it's inappropriate to say that?
No, it's humorous. I like humor.
Do you like dictators?
It's not an issue. He served for 4 years as president. I don't remember a dictatorship breaking out.
Time of the gentleman.
No, we're talking about the
Time of the gentleman has expired. Mr.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Then I'll come to you, I think. Fitz.
Mr. Chairman, is this a joke? No, seriously, is this hearing a joke? This is a committee that now cares about subpoena compliance, and we're going to hold somebody in contempt for subpoena compliance? That's really interesting because, to me, it seems like you believe we all had our memories wiped 608 days ago when you failed to honor your own subpoena. You see, on May 31, 2022, as the January 6th committee was investigating the greatest crime ever committed in America, with the most arrests, the most convictions, a crime against our Congress, our Constitution, our democracy, all they wanted was for you and a few of your colleagues to cooperate, to provide any information you had. And what you all did for 608 days and counting, you didn't show up. And you want us to take this proceeding seriously, where you have an issue with somebody else's compliance with a subpoena, somebody who actually is willing to come forward publicly, something you were not willing to do, something you and Mr. McCarthy and others who were asked to testify were not willing to do. So seriously, is this a joke? If it's a joke, great. This whole Congress has been a joke, so it would be in line and on brand with what has been taking place. But I have to ask, like, how dumb do you think the American people are that you would seek to hold someone in contempt when you are 608 days, 15 hours, 21 minutes, and 47 seconds out of compliance of your own subpoena? I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if it is your practice to look the other way when crimes are committed, but it's not my practice, and it's not my colleagues' practice.
Listen, I'll make this bipartisan. I'll vote for the Hunter contempt today. You can get my vote. You can get my vote. But I want you to show the American people that you're serious. Here is the subpoena to Representative Scott Perry, who did not comply. I'd like to enter this into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mark Meadows. I'd like to enter this into the record, who did not comply. Here is the subpoena to Jim Jordan, who did not comply with a lawful subpoena. I'd like to enter that into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mo Brooks, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mr. Biggs, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. And here's the subpoena to Mr. McCarthy, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. There's an amendment coming to add some of those names into the contempt order. You vote to add those names and show the American people that we apply the law equally, not just when it's Democrats, right? It's a crime when it's Democrats, but when it's Trump and the Republicans, it's just fine. No, show that you're serious and that everyone is not above the law. Vote for that amendment, and I'll vote for the Hunter Biden contempt. I yield back.
I've been in those hearings about Hunter Biden and about President Biden, and the fact is, you're exactly right. They have no evidence showing that President Biden received payments from foreign actors. To the contrary, we have millions and millions of dollars, hard evidence showing that this money went to President Trump. So it's hypocrisy for Republicans on the Oversight Committee to look the other way, to ignore Donald Trump's violations of the Emoluments Clause of our Constitution, and then try to fabricate against evidence to the contrary allegations, baseless at this point allegations toward President Biden. And I think Americans are sick of that kind of hypocrisy. Oversight is about even-handed application of the law, about holding anyone accountable if they don't follow the rules of our Constitution. And the fact is, we have hard evidence that President Trump didn't. The Republicans, sadly, for them, have no evidence with regard to President Biden.
We don't know if it exists even, and I think a lot of people want to know about this, is where is the evidence of wrongdoing on Joe Biden's part?